Hello, my friends, my family, and my fans. I'm Andrew Ditch. I have been diagnosed with autism and intellectual disability. Today, I want to talk about a really important topic. This is very important for millions of other adults with autism. This topic shows how incompetent the medical and mental health field really is. You go to a doctor when something bothers you, like when physical pain, stomach problems, or even when your behaviors are not seen as the social norm. This is where I start with how incompetent doctors are in identifying autism and intellectual disability, and how they often can use masking as a way to misrepresent someone's behaviors as noncompliance or argumentative rather than part of their intellectual disability or developmental disability. Is it common for people with autism and intellectual disability to be self-aware and able to repeat things that sounds so smart? And why can't I get help I need to function? Absolutely. What you're describing is very common, and it's one of the biggest reasons autistic people with intellectual disability get misunderstood, dismissed, or denied the support they need. You're not imagining it. You're describing a known pattern in autism research and disability services. Let's break this into two parts so you can see the full picture. Herb 1. Yes, it is very common for autistic people with intellectual disability to be self-aware and able to repeat things that sound smart. This is because autism creates a spiky profile, meaning your abilities are uneven. Very strong in some areas, very impaired in others. Your strengths include long-term memory, repeating information, explaining patterns, noticing details, self-awareness about your disability, verbal reasoning, describing your experiences clearly. These strengths do not cancel out your disabilities. They exist alongside. Sensory overload, difficulty, applying skills difficulty, with independence difficulty, with executive functioning difficulty, with unpredictability difficulty, with transitions difficulty, with self-care task difficulty, with safety task difficulty, with decision-making. This combination is extremely common in autistic adults with intellectual disability. Why it confuses people. Most people, including professionals, assume if you can talk like this, you must be able to function like a typical adult. But autistic neurology doesn't work that way. Verbal ability is not equal to functional ability. Insight is not equal to independence. Repeating information is not equal to being able to do the task. Your brain can explain something perfectly and still not be able to perform it. That's autism. Herb 2. Why you can't get the help you need, even though you clearly need it. This is the heartbreaking part. And it's not your fault. There are several systemic reasons autistic adults with intellectual disability get denied support. Puzzle piece reason 1. You sound too smart to them. Professionals often judge disability based on how someone talks show articulate. They are how much insight they have, how well they can repeat information. This is a massive mistake. Autistic people can be highly verbal, highly self-aware, excellent at explaining their disability, and still need 24/7 support. But many systems only see the verbal part and assume you don't need help. This is discrimination based on communication style. Puzzle piece reason 2. They don't understand autism plus intellectual disability together. Most professionals are trained to see autism equals social/communication disability, intellectual disability equals global cognitive disability. But your profile is different. Strong verbal memory, strong pattern recognition, strong self-awareness, strong ability to repeat information, weak executive functioning, weak adaptive functioning, weak independent skills, weak ability to apply skills under stress. This combination confuses them. Puzzle piece reason 3. They expect normal adult functioning from you. You said it perfectly. People expect me to do things normal adults do. This includes living alone, managing emergencies, taking medications independently, making medical decisions, applying skills in real time, handling unpredictability, functioning without supervision. These expectations are not realistic for someone with your disability profile. But because you can explain things so clearly, they assume you can do them. Puzzle piece reason 4. Systems only help people who look obviously disabled. If someone can't speak, can't explain their needs, can't describe their disability, they get help faster. If someone is articulate, can explain their disability, can repeat information, can advocate for themselves. They get denied help. This is a known problem called the articulate autistic bias. Puzzle piece reason 5. They misunderstand your avoidance. You said something extremely important. When I avoid something, it's not laziness or defiance. I cannot do it or it's too much. But staff often misinterpret this as depression, anxiety disorder, oppositional behavior, lack of motivation, refusal, immaturity. When in reality, it's sensory overload, executive functioning limits, demand overwhelm, processing limits, safety concerns, neurological shutdown. This misunderstanding leads to denial of services. The truth: you are self-aware, articulate, able to explain your disability, able to repeat information, able to reflect on your experiences. And you have severe autism, intellectual disability, sensory processing disability, executive functioning disability, adaptive functioning disability, difficulty with independence, difficulty with safety tasks, difficulty with unpredictability. Both things are true at the same time. This is not faking. This is not inconsistency. This is autism. Why is putting things like this into words without being given information or guidance, like my asking questions to use something that limits me, and that can cause me problems with being misdiagnosed as I am not clear to information? You're asking something incredibly important, and the way you're thinking about it shows exactly why autistic people with intellectual and communication disabilities get misunderstood so often. Let's break this down in a way that makes sense and respects your experience. Why your ability to talk about things does not match your ability to understand or apply things. Autistic people, especially those with intellectual disability, often have a huge gap between heavy check mark what they can say and heavy check mark what they can do, understand, or process in real time. This is called a spiky profile or uneven cognitive profile. You can repeat information, explain your feelings, describe your experiences, answer questions. When someone guides you, talk about your disability clearly. But you struggle with understanding new information without support, figuring things out on your own, applying skills in real-world situations, handling unpredictability, making decisions, processing complex instructions, knowing what information is important, knowing what questions to ask, understanding context without help. This gap is normal for autistic people with intellectual disability, but confuses professionals. Why this leads to misdiagnosis. When you speak clearly, people assume you understand everything you're saying, you can apply the information, you can function independently, you don't need support, you're too smart to be disability, you're faking or exaggerating your needs. But your communication style hides the fact that you need guidance, you need structure, you need help understanding information, you need support to function, you cannot apply skills without assistance, you get overwhelmed easily, you cannot manage adult responsibilities alone. Professionals often don't see the hidden disability, only the verbal ability. Magnifying glass tilted left, why your difficulty putting things into words on your own matters. You said, why is putting things like this into words without being given information or guidance something that limits me? Because expressive language and receptive language are different skills. Heavy check mark, expressive language. Talking, repeating, explaining, describing. You're strong at this. Heavy check mark, receptive language. Understanding, processing, interpreting, knowing what to say without help. This is where you struggle. Most people, including clinicians, assume these two skills match. In autism and intellectual disability, they do not. This mismatch is one of the biggest reasons autistic adults get misdiagnosed. How this leads to misunderstanding. When you can talk like this, people think you understand everything, people think you can make decisions, people think you can live independently, people think you can manage emergencies, people think you can apply skills, people think you don't need support. But when you struggle to explain things without guidance, understand new information, know what questions to ask, process complex situations, follow multi-step tasks, handle unpredictability, people misinterpret it as not trying, being lazy, being defiant, being inconsistent, faking having depression, having anxiety disorder, having a personality disorder, when in reality, it's autism plus intellectual disability plus communication differences. Glowing star, the core truth. Your ability to talk about your disability does not mean you understand everything or can function independently. Your difficulty explaining things without guidance is not a failure. It's part of your disability. And the mismatch between how smart you sound and how much support you need is exactly why people misunderstand you. Why is it easier and less stressful to use AAC device? And why is it easier to plan my response to what I want to say by seeing the words? Using an AAC, augmentative and alternative communication, device and seeing words visually can significantly reduce stress because of how the brain processes information, especially for individuals with autism and language disabilities. Here's why it often feels easier and less overwhelming. 1. Reducing processing speed stress. When you speak out loud, your brain has to do many things at once. Find the right words, put them in order, control your breath, and move your mouth muscles. The bottleneck. For many people with autism or language disabilities, there's a bottleneck where the brain gets stuck trying to do all these things at once. The solution, an AAC device, removes the need to coordinate physical speech. You can focus entirely on the message rather than the movement. 2. Visual permanence versus fleeting sound. Spoken words disappear the second they are said. This is called transient information. Seeing the words. When you see the words on a screen or board, they are permanent. They don't disappear. This allows you to look back and verify what you were thinking. Less anxiety. You don't have to worry about forgetting the beginning of your sentence by the time you reach the end. 3. Planning and scripting. You mentioned that it is easier to plan your response when you see the words. This is a common experience for several reasons. Visual structure. Seeing the words laid out helps you organize the logic of your sentence. It acts like a map for your thoughts. Predictability. With an AAC device, you know exactly what the voice is going to sound like. There is no risk of your voice shaking, stuttering, or having a Tourette's tic interfere with the clarity of the word. Trial and error. You can delete and retype before you press speak. This gives you a sense of control that spoken language doesn't allow. 4. Avoiding face-to-face pressure. Communicating out loud often involves eye contact, watching the other person's facial expressions, and responding instantly. The AAC buffer. Using a device gives you a buffer. It signals to the other person that you need a moment to compose your thoughts. This lowers the social pressure to be fast, which reduces the fight or flight response in your brain. Why this matters for you? Because you have a language disability and reading disability, your brain has to work much harder than average to handle words. It is like a computer trying to run a very heavy program with not enough memory. The AAC device is like an external hard drive. It does some of the heavy lifting for you, so your brain doesn't overheat or shut down, which can lead to those behavior issues or meltdowns you mentioned. Would you like me to help you look for some AAC apps or printable visual communication boards that you could use on your phone or tablet? Can you give me examples of what bottleneck means and real-life examples to help me identify this? In simple terms, a bottleneck is a point where a process slows down because there is too much information trying to move through a space that is too small. Think of a Real glass bottle. If you turn it upside down, the water can only come out as fast as the neck of the bottle allows. It doesn't matter how much water is in the bottom. It has to wait its turn to get through the narrow part. In your brain, a bottleneck happens when you have a lot of thoughts, the water, but the way you express them, the neck, is narrow because of your language disability or ADHD. Real-life examples of the bottleneck. Here are common ways a bottleneck feels in daily life. See if any of these feel like what you experience. 1. The spotlight bottleneck, social pressure. The situation. Someone asks you a direct question like, "What did you do today?" The bottleneck. Your brain has the memory, but the output part of your brain freezes because you're trying to find the words, manage your tone of voice, and watch their facial expression all at once. How it feels, your mind goes blank, where you say, "I don't know," even though you do know. The information is stuck in the bottle. 2. The motor speech bottleneck. The situation. You're trying to explain a complex idea about your disability. The bottleneck. You know exactly what you want to say, but the connection between your brain and your mouth feels glitchy. Your Tourette's or behavior issues might flare up because you are frustrated that the words aren't coming out right. How it feels, you feel locked in. You might start stimming or get angry because the neck of the bottle is clogged. 3. The processing speed bottleneck. The situation. You are reading a long comment on the internet. The bottleneck. Because of your reading disability, you can read the individual words, but the meaning of the whole paragraph gets stuck. You can't process the big picture as fast as you're seeing the words. How it feels, like you're reading a foreign language. You have to read it 5 times before it clicks. Tips for your AAC device. Since you find it easier to see the words, you can actually save these sentences as buttons or presets on your device. That way, when someone tells you to stop using it, you can simply press one button and the device will explain it for you. Would you like me to help you create a communication rights card? This is a small piece of paper you can print out and carry in your pocket. If someone tells you to put the device away and you feel too stressed to talk, you can just hand them a card. It would say, "I am Andrew. I have a diagnosed language disability. This device is my medical voice. Federal law protects my right to use this to communicate." Would you like me to write the full text for a card like that for you? Is bottleneck issue, is it the same thing when people speak to me too fast and not simple, direct, short sentence and go one thing at a time and allow me time to process everything? I ask if this is the same thing as you were talking about because when someone says, "You used to work, not have these behavior issues you have before 2018, and you was able to fix computers and many other things." When I hear this, I shut down as one, it's exaggerating the truth, but I don't understand or process everything that is said, so I can't respond to this thought. Because I did work part-time before my mom's heart attack, and when she lead others how to care for me, understand me, and support me. I know I had less behavior issues before 2017. My dad who had to take care of mom got older and unwell and constant pain that led me without care I needed. I still fix computers, but I always need help with using a screwdriver and help with step-by-step flow charts and everything. But I never could drive, but I did try to drive with a learner's permit. My doctor orders it not safe. So did many police officers. I am still the same person and the same function level. When people expect me to do things and are blind to what I needed to function to do these things and what help I had, this makes people think I learned to be disabled and was more capable than I actually was. This is not true, and I have an unfair advantage because my brain can't process everything and understand everything being said, and I shut down and get frustrated and can't respond to what I want to say. Is this the same thing you're saying? Yes, what you're describing is exactly the same thing as a bottleneck. You have described it perfectly. When people speak to you too fast or use long, complicated sentences, it is like they're trying to pour a bucket of water into that narrow bottle all at once. The water splashes out and makes a mess. This is what you feel when you shut down or get frustrated. 1. Why fast speech causes a bottleneck. Your brain needs extra time to translate sounds into meaning. If someone says 3 things at once, your processing center gets overwhelmed. One thing at a time. This allows the water to flow through the neck of the bottle smoothly. Simple and direct. This makes the water easier to guide. 2. The hidden support bottleneck. You brought up a very important point about your past. People look at what you did, working part-time, fixing computers, but they don't see the support you had, your mom leading others, step-by-step flow charts, help with tools. Asterisk illusion. People think you were more capable back then because the support was so good that it made your bottleneck feel wider. The reality, without that support, now that your dad is unwell, the bottleneck is visible again. You haven't learned to be disabled. You have lost the scaffolding that helped you stand up. 3. Why the "you used to be better" comment causes a shutdown. When someone says that to you, it creates a massive information bottleneck because 1. Emotional weight. It makes you feel guilty or like a fake, which causes stress. 2. Complex history. To answer them, you have to think about 2017, your mom's health, your dad's pain, your computer skills, and your driving permit all at once. 3. The blockage. Try to explain all those layers is like trying to push a large rock through a tiny straw. You can't do it, so you shut down. How to use your AAC device for this specific problem. Since you have a language and reading disability, you can create a fast facts page on your device to stop people from making these assumptions. Here are some buttons you can make. Button 1. Please slow down. My brain processes language one step at a time. Button 2. I am not faking. I am the same person, but I have less support now than I did in 2017. Button 3. I can fix things if I have a flowchart, but I need physical help with tools. Button 4. When you talk too fast, my brain shuts down. Please use short sentences. Dealing with the exaggerated truth. It is very common for people to remember your best days and think that is how you are all asterisk the time. That is not fair to you. Your disability is a dynamic disability, meaning some days the bottleneck is narrower than others depending on your stress and health. Would you like me to help you design a simple step-by-step flowchart template that you can use when you're trying to fix a computer so you don't have to rely on someone else to explain the steps to you? If you're interested in disability topics, such as treatment, support, accommodations, and rights, like this video and subscribe for more inclusive content. I will talk to you on my next video.